welcome. You're tuned into TMH's Daily English News. Our headlines for today: the Tigray government has denied any direct engagements with the Ethiopian authorities. The Economist says sanctions should be reimposed on the regime of Eritrea's Isaias Afwerki, and besieged Tigray graduates have graduated to become doctors. As we move on to our main updates for today, the Tigray government has denied any direct engagements with the Ethiopian authorities. Tigrayan authorities say that they have no direct engagements with the Ethiopian government following a statement that was released by the African Union, in which has been leading a push to end this 21-month conflict. Getachew Reda, who's member of Tigray Armed Forces Central Command, said an AFP story that cited an AU statement was pure fabrication. Such engagements simply did not happen, he said on his official Twitter account. And according to AFP, a statement dated on the 4th of August, but posted by the AU's Peace and Security Council on its website on Thursday, talked of direct engagements between the Ethiopian government and the Tigrayan forces. But an updated version of this said statement on the website has replaced the word between by with, and the original, which was published both in English and French, is currently no longer available. AFP did say it contacted the PSC for comment, but there's no immediate response. As we move on to our next update, The Economist says sanctions should be reimposed on the regime of Eritrean's Isaias Afwerki. An article by The Economist titled "Containing Eritrea, the North Korea of Africa" wrote that Isaias is the only leader in his country that has now known in 3 decades for independence at all. It said Isaias has turned into a hot, dusty prison camp, and he has fought wars against 2 neighbors, stirred up trouble in several others, and then in the year of 2020, he even sent troops into Ethiopia's civil current war, where he's seen as the main obstacle to ending this bloody ongoing conflict. Restraining him would be a public good, said The Economist. According to the article, dictator like Eritrea's Isaias Afwerki seldom prove with age and time in office as they grow accustomed to untrammeled power. They forget why restraint is a virtue in the first place, as the article noted. The article also added that as they punish truth tellers, they hear more lies that have years of tyrannizing their own people, and the wonder if they can get away with bullying foreigners as well. Vladimir Putin, whose Kim Jong-un are not the only despots who menace their neighbors, as Eritrea's Isaias Afwerki is equally malign, as The Economist mentioned. Ship carrying grain for hungry Ethiopians has currently left Ukraine. A United Nations chartered ship, which was loaded with 23,000 metric tons of Ukrainian grain, is destined for Ethiopia to set sail Sunday from a Black Sea port. The first shipment of its kind in a program to assist countries facing extreme famine, like Ethiopia, the Liberia-flagged Brave Commander departed from the Ukrainian port of Yuzin east of Odessa, according to a regional government, Maxim Marchenko, who plans to sail to Djibouti, where there the grain will be unloaded and then finally transferred into Ethiopia under the World Food Program initiative. Ukraine and Russia reached a deal with Turkey in July 22nd to restart Black Sea grain deliveries and addressing the major export disruption that has occurred since Russia invaded Ukraine back in February of this year. Ethiopia is one of the 5 countries that the UN considers at risk of starvation this year. Besieged Tigrayan graduate doctors, Professor Kindeya ገብረሕይወት of Tigray External Affairs Office said Eider Hospital of Ma'ala University graduates, the latest batch of medical doctors who not only made it to the Hippocratic Oath with resilience, but also served their community as interns for a year under this ongoing siege. Those interns had no salary for a year, but prevailed anyway. It's hard to treat patients in a hospital without medicine, food, and all inputs, an unbreakable batch, as one of their professors said, Professor Kindeya wrote on his official Twitter account. Kindeya congratulated the brave doctors, their families, their teachers, and the complete community at Eider Hospital in Ma'ala City. Students learning in Tigray are being currently crippled by the war. As we move on to our final update, according to Ethiopia's Insight, war and the government-imposed siege have devastated Tigray's educational system, a devastation that has harmed students' learning, thus undermined Tigray's future. The Tigray Education Bureau recently published a damage assessment of the education system in which over 91% of schools were surveyed in 6 zones. The Bureau was unable to access western and northwestern zones as they were not under complete Tigray's control. And the study revealed that 88% of classrooms, 96% of desks, 97% of blackboards, 85% of computers, and 87% of plasma televisions have been damaged due to this conflict. On top of the physical damage, about 2,146 members of the school and the community have been killed because of the war, of whom 1,911 were students and 84% were in fact female. According to this article, Tigray's educational system has been set back decades by the civil war, and the indiscriminate killings of civilians in the federal government's siege pushed many teachers to join the Tigray Defense Force, as many of them decided that going to the battlefield is the only way to reverse the current situations within the Tigray region. Owing this to the dangers associated with returning to class, the pupil-teacher ratio is likely to increase in the reopened schools coming this year. The Tigray Education Bureau's rough calculation of the student section ratio revealed that number of undamaged classrooms to the existing number of primary school students in grades 1 to 8 reached about 1 to 34 in about 2021. Teachers are now forced to have a large number of students in each class, which negatively impacts their ability to closely monitor students' progress as well as teach their progress. Furthermore, teachers in the reopened schools are working amidst life-threatening hardships. They have not been paid for over a year, and many don't even have enough food to supply themselves or their family. The learning crisis is exacerbated by starvation, psychological trauma, and health insecurity, and as these teachers and students, like the rest of the community, are being starved and often show up to school without eating a proper meal. Tigray's educational system was built over a period of 4 decades. As such, it will take many more years, if not decades, to reconstruct the schools that have been demolished and replace teachers who lost their lives in the war or even fled to other areas to escape its ravages. Ethiopian Insight indicated that given the enormity of the task at hand, and aside from the restoration of peace and order, the cooperation of multilateral and bilateral organizations with local actors is needed and extremely dire to rebuild the schools and the education system as well. That wraps up our news for today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will be back for some more tomorrow. Bye-bye.